Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Anthony, President of the League of Women Voters, Wilkes-Barre area. On behalf of our Board of Directors, welcome. Please silence your cell phones and other devices this evening. I know I just did mine, so. This event is being recorded. It's in its entirety by Service Electric Television and will be broadcast and then posted on the Luzerne County YouTube channel. No part of this recording may be used or distributed by any person, candidate, campaign, or political group for any reason. Candidates may provide a link to on their websites to the full YouTube video. However, you're welcome to cut and paste that link. Many thanks to Wilkes University's facilities crew and events office for providing us with this venue. Thanks also to our league board and members, all volunteers who are working this event tonight. Thank you to the candidates for their availability, Democrat Fern, Leard, and Republican Brenda, Pugh. We look forward to their thoughts and positions on a variety of issues that face the 120th District. Most importantly, audience, thank you for being here. Look at this room and how many people are here. It is wonderful. And we hope the information that you glean tonight will assist you in making informed voting decisions on Election Day or on your mail-in ballot. As you might notice, we do not have microphones this evening, so I've asked everyone to please project as they talk this evening from up here. Our moderator this evening is Dr. Michael Little, an associate professor and chair of English at King's College right here in Wilkes-Barre down the street. We are thankful for his time and labor here tonight. Thank you. Mike will now briefly review the format for tonight's forum. Please, let's give him a hand. Thank you.
Thank you. This evening we'll spend some time talking with the two candidates running for the 120th State Legislative District of Pennsylvania, Democrat Fern Leard and Republican Brenda Pugh. The order in which candidates will speak was determined by coin toss, with Fern beginning. The order in which questions are asked will be rotated so that the second question will be asked of the candidate who went second on the first question, and so on. Candidates will be given a 2-minute period for both opening and closing statements. Questions for the candidates will be selected from a list submitted by our audience today and the league board. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question. We ask that you hold any applause until the end of the forum after the closing statements. And now we'll begin with our opening statements, starting with Fern Leard.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I would like to thank my opponent, Brenda, for agreeing to the forum. I do think it's very important for voters to hear our stances on the issues. Thank you to Dr. Little for moderating the forum, taking time out of your evening to do so. It's very much appreciated. For those of you who don't know, I fell into politics when my sons were born with a rare disease, and a main component of their care was not covered by health insurance. And I found out that there was a bill in Congress that would mandate coverage, and I went to DC and I began to fight for it. And in the 10 years it took to get it passed, I learned the ropes of political process. And when it did pass, it did so with huge bipartisan support. I worked with everybody from Katie Porter to Dan User. There was 402 yes votes on that bill, and I am proud to say that that included 100% of the Republicans representing Pennsylvanians in the United States House. I bring to the table life experience that has brought me to where we are today, and I look forward to speaking about the issues for the rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, I'm not going to have a problem without a microphone. My name's Brenda Pugh and I'm running to be your representative. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, Dr. Little for being the moderator tonight, and everybody for coming out. I started life out in low-income housing. My parents struggled every day. But they gave us grit and they gave us determination, and we fought our way up and out of it. From there, I worked in the fields out at Diamonds Farms because that was the right thing to do. My father taught us to give back to community, and they needed help during the harvesting season. My first job was a waitress. That's because we couldn't afford for me to pay for my insurance and to pay for the gas that had to go into the car when I started driving. That's where I learned customer service. That's where I learned giving back to the community. It's at that point I met my husband, Alan, through chocolate milkshakes, of course. That was his favorite. From there, we raised 3 beautiful kids who are now raising families of their own. We started a business, working 2 and 3 jobs at a time, sometimes mortgaging our home in order to make payrolls and not taking pays ourselves, but rather than pay our employees. I'm very proud of where we are right now with jobs, well-paid, insurance, taking care of our community the way it's supposed to be. I am ready to go on. I have worked all across this great world. I am looking at this as a much bigger community to support.
Okay, thank you both. The first question then will go to you, Brenda.
Sure.
And again, you will each have 1 minute to respond. So, Pennsylvania hasn't raised its minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour, since 2009. The governor has proposed gradually increasing it over several years to $15 an hour. Do you support or oppose raising the minimum wage?
So to me, being the president of the Back Mountain Chamber and representing many other small businesses, which are the backbones of our community, I think if you force a minimum wage increase, you are going to put multiple small businesses out of business. They're the ones that support our baseball teams, our soccer teams, and our basketball teams. They're the sponsors of all of that. The market itself, the jobs market itself, has corrected itself on what businesses are able to pay and actually pay. By forcing that, you're going to force the business owner to increase their product to you, which means they may be paying more, but you're going to pay more out of your pocket. This is a fine line that has to be walked, and we have to really take it seriously. We have to consider all of the small businesses across the state of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Brenda. Fern?
Thank you so much. Let's be real here. It is unrealistic to think that anyone can survive off the minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. We need to implement a practical plan of action that will help working people. Low wages keep many people working 2 to 3 jobs just to support their family. It leaves little room for family time, and if we want to address a lot of the issues our society is currently facing, then we should start with making sure our foundation starts with family, and we can't do that if we're not home because we're working 2 to 3 jobs thanks to our minimum wage being $7.25 an hour. It's unacceptable.
Thank you, Fern. The second question then, we'll start with you. Pennsylvania is the largest U.S. natural gas producer that does not impose a severance tax. Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Wyoming, and Ohio all impose a severance tax on natural gas. What is your position on a severance tax, either to replace the state's extraction tax or in addition to it?
I support an extraction tax. Pennsylvania is hurting, and we have many, many ways that we could increase our revenue, and that would be one of them. But I do think that it is time to begin the transition into clean energy. What we're seeing, like what we just saw in Dimmock, only 35 miles from here, where people are lighting their water on fire from the faucet, and what we're seeing over in Wyoming County, where they're dumping fracking water on our rural roads. These things are unacceptable, and they're making us sick. So while I do support an extraction tax to help the revenue while we transition into clean energy, I do think that it's important that Pennsylvania remain a leader in clean energy production while we keep our families safe.
Thank you. Brenda?
Natural gas. It's one of the top industries in the state of Pennsylvania, and it's sitting right underneath us. I think we need to do more to get the gas out of the ground safely. I think we need to have initiatives to get it to every resident in the 120th district or across the state. Many homes, many of you in this room have natural gas, which is a clean, affordable heating source. There are those of us that do not have it. We have to find alternate ways in order to heat our houses. I think that as far as the tax goes, that belongs at ground zero. The communities that are affected by the gas being brought up out of the ground, the roads that are being affected if something should spill on them. Those are the communities that need to be taken care of. Their first responders, their emergency responders, they're the ones that need to be taken care of because they are ground zero.
Thank you, Brenda. So the third question then will be for Brenda. We'll start with Brenda. What is your position on using public funds to provide voucher scholarships to private schools, namely the Pennsylvania Award for Student Success Bill? Similarly, what is your position on the way in which charter schools are regulated and funded?
I am a school choice candidate. I believe that schools, our public schools, need to be funded properly. All schools funded fairly and equally. But there comes a time in life when you've raised children like I have and grandchildren that sometimes that school is not a fit for your child. They're not learning, they get pulled out, they do homeschool. We're going through that right now. And that's a sad situation to be in. The child and the parent should be able to make the best decision for their child, for their education, in order to succeed.
Thank you. Fern?
Yes, so I understand the appeal of voucher programs, and I don't disagree with wanting all of our students to receive a top-notch education. But we have never seen that happen in any state that has enacted a voucher program. We see our most vulnerable students continue to be left behind while a giant hole is blasted right through the budget. I support strengthening our public education to provide all of our students with a top-notch education, but I don't believe using a system that robs Peter to pay Paul is the answer. Right now, the way our public education funding has no oversight is a huge problem. We know that our schools need to be funded fairly and equitably, but we don't know how the money that we're giving to them is being allocated. We need to make sure that our tax dollars aren't being spent recklessly, and I think it's extremely important to know how our tax dollars are funding our public education. This is an issue where we need to lift all boats with the rising tide, not just cater to the select few.
Thank you. Okay, this next question then, we will begin with you, Fern. With housing prices and rents outpacing local wages, is there a role for the state government to assist citizens in finding affordable housing? If so, what would you propose? And if not, why?
Well, the state already has programs for affordable housing like Section 8 and low-income housing that we do create for our communities. I think the problem, it goes right back again to the wages. And, you know, everything goes up at our wages, including our housing and our rent. So we do have a responsibility to take care of our Pennsylvanian citizens, but let's get to the root of the problem. $7.25 an hour. You can't afford the housing on that. You can't afford to get by on that. We need to have our raises increase the same way as everything else goes up. Full stop.
Thank you. Brenda?
Sure. So being a real estate agent for years, I've seen this and I've experienced this. There's a lot of houses out there. There's a lot of opportunity for people in order to purchase a house. Nobody's getting $7.25 an hour right now. You're getting $15 an hour in McDonald's to service. You raise those rates, we're already checking ourselves out at the grocery store. We're already our own gas attendants. We're already servicing ourselves no matter where you go. When you come down to that minimum wage, they're just going to replace us with computers. As far as housing goes, yes, something needs to be done. But the state itself already has a lot of subsidies. I came up through that. They have subsidies for everything. What needs to happen is the subsidies that are being paid out. Let's get the people off of welfare that don't deserve to be there. We've got 1 million people on the welfare system without dependents. Let's get them back to work.
Thank you, Brenda. We'll begin with you on this question then. Pennsylvania, as well as many other states, has witnessed increased gun violence. Do you think that additional regulations on gun ownership, registration, and types of weapons and ammunition are necessary to reduce gun violence? If so, what would you propose, and if not, why?
No, I would not impose any more rules on the guns. We have the Constitution states that we have a right to bear arms to defend ourselves and to defend our state. That's where it lays with me. I've worked all across this world. I work in countries that have a 0 gun tolerance, but still have a massive amount of gang crime, gun crime, citizens getting shot, tourists getting shot. They can't defend themselves because they're not allowed. The legal abiding citizen is not allowed to protect themselves in the country, so they don't carry. But the gangs and the criminals are still carrying, they still find the guns, they still shoot people, and Adding extra guns is not going to stop any shooting around here. I've experienced it and I've lived it.
Thank you, Fern.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to answer the question. I'm just curious what McDonald's in our district is paying $15 an hour.
Dallas.
And no, it's not. No. So Pennsylvania does offer some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And I do support the enforcement of our Pennsylvania straw gun laws. And I think some of the problem is we do have the laws on the books and they're not enforced. We need to allocate funding to our first responders, our police, to make sure that they have the ability to enforce them. I would like to increase the number of seminars that Representative Aaron Coffer had in our district. I would like to have them in more places for the district. I think it's important to include people here in the 120th district on the conversation about gun legislation, and I think that we would do a much better job of promoting safely use of the guns. I have no problem with guns.
Thank you, Fern. We'll start this next question with you. Pennsylvania's campaign finance laws are among the least restrictive in the nation. There are no limits on how much groups and individuals can contribute to candidates and parties, and there are few restrictions on what candidates can spend their campaign funds on. Various reform proposals have appeared in both chambers over the years but never advanced. What is your position on the state's campaign finance laws, and what reforms, if any, would you support?
Our campaign finance laws, as you stated, are some of the loosest in the country, if not the most loose in the country. This is a reason why everyday people do not run for office. We simply cannot afford it. There are other states that limit campaign finance, and you see an average person running for office more frequently. There are plumbers, our electricians, our teachers, and so on and so forth. But when we have millions being dumped in our elections and politicians being bought, it's harder for people like me to run for office because poor people don't have access to the same fundraising pools as everyone else. And it's just an unfair advantage where we only have wealthy people running for office, people who do not experience the problems that we have on the ground. And frankly, it's time to send someone to Harrisburg that's experienced the problems they've been sent there to solve. And money should not be an obstacle in order for us to be able to do that. But it is, because the laws are terrible. We need a lot of reform here.
Thank you, Brenda.
I'm not going to disagree. I think there needs to be reform on this, 100%. I'm very proud of my campaign and the grassroots effort that we put forward in order to raise the funds that we've been able to raise. I'm not going to deny that, but it needs to be taken care of. It needs to be handled. In fact, I think one of the first bills I'd like to work on is making sure that anybody running for office, no matter what level it's at, it's a truth act put onto any advertising that's put out there, the full truth, and take care of that and stop spreading the lies on all levels. We're all tired of getting the mail in our mailboxes. We're all tired of trying to figure out what's going on. We've got Google, we've got other news sources, but the stuff that's going around right now and the lies that are going on all campaigns needs to stop.
Thank you. We'll start this next question with you. The CDC has concluded that mental health services, or the lack thereof, is a major contributing factor to the increasing rates of depression, violence, and suicidal behavior among young people. What can the state do to increase mental health services, especially in our schools?
Is that to me first?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's right.
So Pennsylvania, in the last 20 years, it's a 32.7% increase in suicides. That's a problem. I've got 3 friends who have lost their family members to suicide because they missed the signs. There is a whole lot more work that needs to be done on this. We need to stop the bullying in the schools. We need to stop making people feel like lesser people just because somebody wants to put them down. We need a lot more work, we need open minds, and we need to get this taken care of.
Thank you. Fern?
Well, the fact is that we no longer have facilities here en masse to treat mental health conditions. Big corporations came in, they bought out places like First Hospital, decided that our mental health wasn't profitable enough, and closed down. There needs to be accountability for that. You cannot just come in and offer services and then leave the area and not provide them. Our mental health in our district took a hit because we lost all of the services coming out of that building. It's not just in our schools. It's not just stopping bullying. It's about getting to the root cause of our problems and opening up mental health resources that we no longer have here. We need to bring them back.
All right, thank you. We'll start with you on this next question. Would you support an amendment to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that would protect a woman's reproductive rights? Why or why not?
Of course I would. I'm a proud advocate for reproductive freedoms, and I'll continue to fight for access to quality reproductive care without involving the government in our personal decisions. I mean, we're seeing women suffer across the country due to regulations that are just destroying women's rights. I mean, currently under the Abortion Control Act, which I know my opponent openly supports, there's a spousal notification clause in which women need written permission. And if doctors don't have that permission, they're found guilty of unprofessional conduct, and it can cause their license to be suspended or revoked. And they would also become civilly liable under punitive damages of up to $5,000. We need to stop punishing women for seeking out health care, and we need to set it up so our doctors are not punished for seeking out health care. So yes, I would support it, and yes, I will fervently defend a woman's right to choose.
Thank you. Please hold your applause till after we're finished. Brenda?
Sure. State of Pennsylvania's at 24 weeks. Let's change that into 6 months. I will not put a woman in jail because she chose to have an abortion in that time frame. With the exceptions of rape, incest, and life of the mother. As I've explained to people, I have a daughter. If I got a phone call and having a husband that was a fireman and a police officer, I know those calls happen. I know many of you may not realize that. But if I had to choose between my daughter and an unborn, I selfishly would have chosen my daughter, unless she gave me otherwise. So the state of Pennsylvania, I feel, has it right. We have options all the way up and through the 6th month. I am not against it in any way, shape, or form, despite what 2 words said in the beginning of a paragraph.
Please hold your applause until we have concluded the forum. So this next question, we'll start with you, Brenda.
Sure.
Pennsylvania is one of only 8 states where primary elections are fully closed by statute. That is, only registered Republicans and registered Democrats may vote for their choice of party candidate to advance to the November election. Current House bills with bipartisan sponsors and support would make a small change to the election code where registered Republicans and registered Democrats would vote as they now do on a party-specific ballot, but independent voters could vote on one or the other party primary ballot. Do you support the legislation to open up Pennsylvania primaries to allow independent voters to vote in Pennsylvania primaries? Why or why not?
Sure, I've got a lot of friends that are independents and unaffiliated. They don't have a voice until it comes to the general election. That's not fair. The majority of this country is to the center. And that's why you're seeing a swing to the independent line. So I think we need to do something for them. It's not right that they have to wait until we get to the general in order to vote. They should have a say other than just 2 candidates.
Thank you. Fern?
I'm not going to disagree. We do need that reform. We do need to open up our primaries. We often hear about how every legal vote should matter, and yet we leave over 1 million legal registered voters out of the equation when it comes to primary elections. Everyone has a right to participate in choosing a candidate. So yes, I will support primary election reform.
Thank you. Then we'll start with you on this question. Governor Shapiro has proposed 2 ways to financially assist the state's college students. One is to increase the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency grants to $6,750, which helps all Pennsylvania college students, including those at private universities. The other is to place a $1,000 per semester cap on tuition for Pennsylvania families earning $70,000 or less. What are your thoughts on these proposals?
My thoughts are that the cost of college is ridiculously high, and neither one of those amounts help put a dent in it. The reality is that we have a massive amount of young people going into a massive amount of debt because they can't afford school, and that is a problem. And I just don't know that either one of those are the solution, because we're still leaving either kids in debt or people like me who could not afford college still far away from it, because throwing $6,000 at it or $1,000 per semester when it costs tens of thousands of dollars for each semester is just, it's a ridiculous thing. That's it.
Thank you, Fern. Brenda?
College is outrageous. I had 3 kids that went through it, one that ended up going through law school. Very proud of them. They paid their bills and they got their jobs done. In fact, my son gave plasma in order to make extra money while he was in college. He did what he had to do to survive, but he got it done. I'd like to see the state do more investment in our trades. I sat at a round table with multiple chambers and Congressman Cartwright telling them we're going to have an issue soon. We're going to have an issue not having plumbers and electricians and carpenters, because we have made it so important to go out and get a 4-year degree thinking that that's the only way that you're going to make money in this state. It's wrong. It's not the only way to do it. Let's invest in our trades. Let's invest and get these kids working without this huge debt. I belong to an organization called Year-365. We have been giving scholarships to trades students for the last 4 years, and that's something I'm extremely proud of.
Thank you, Brenda. We will start with you on this question, which we got from the audience. Rank choice voting opens up competition by allowing voters to rank preferred candidates. What do you think about Pennsylvania doing that?
Rank choice. As in giving them an A, B, C, D, or F? Is that what we're talking about there?
That's my understanding.
That's your understanding? Because I don't know enough about it. Representative Coffer, rank. I need more information.
Well, it's a number. It's not a letter grade, but it's a number ranking, right? Yeah.
Wait, so we're going to go into a poll and we're going to give them a grade, and the total number at the bottom is going to win?
I believe that's how that works.
Okay.
But I don't know. I didn't.
Then I'm going to have to say no. Everybody's going to get 100 if you're voting for your candidate. So let's be realistic. If that's the way it works, and I don't fully understand it, and I am a researcher, I would have to do my homework and research on that.
Okay. Can you correct me on this?
Ranked choice voting, as I understand it, is when you have more than 2 candidates on a ballot. You go in and then you choose your top favorite, and if that person should not win, who would you pick second and who would you pick third, and so on and so forth. And that helps narrow down the pool until you reach 2 candidates. And I would support that. If your top candidate can't get through, which would be unfortunate, then you have your secondary candidate. But that it only matters when there is more than 2 candidates on the ballot.
Okay. Thanks. With that clarification, Brenda, then does that change anything in your answer?
No.
Okay.
I have to do my own research. Thank you, though.
All right, then, Fern, we'll start with you on this one. There has been talk for several years of legalizing recreational marijuana in the state. All the states that border Pennsylvania, except West Virginia, have now legalized it and have experienced large revenue gains. Pennsylvania is losing out on this revenue source. The governor has estimated that revenue from legalized pot would be $14.8 million in year 1, $76 million in year 2, $160 million in year 3, and $330 million in year 4. What are your thoughts on legalizing marijuana?
I have long been a proponent for legalizing marijuana for recreational use. I stand with our current representative, Aaron Coffer, on the need to legalize marijuana for recreational use for the revenue to bring into the Commonwealth. What I would like to say is that when we do that, because we should, the funds from it need to go into a non-discretionary fund if we're going to use them for funding schools or for property taxes or for whatever it is that we choose to use them for. We cannot put it in a discretionary fund like we did for the casinos, because then we never see it. We need to make sure that that money is going to where it is supposed to go.
Thank you. Brenda?
Sure. So right now, no. And my problem with that is I'm a researcher. The CDC and the NHI have had reports out recently. If you go to their sites, anybody can look them up. I'm worried about our children. I'm worried about their developing brains. The smoke from the recreational marijuana is actually showing THC levels in infants and adolescents. Those THC levels in our children, according to the CDC, don't take it from me, and the NHI, we do not know what the long-term effects are going to do to them. They still experience the same feeling that the person smoking the joint does. Now, let's make the taxes on hemp. Did you know hemp is in the dashboards of your cars? Renewable plastic bottles in concrete to make it stronger? I'll grow it for those purposes. I'll grow it for our local farmers and the PA preferred.
Thank you, Brenda. We'll start with you on this question. Do you support House Bill 78 to establish the Medical Relief Program and/or Governor Shapiro's proposal to use $4 million of state money to erase the medical debt for thousands of Pennsylvanians, mostly in lower income and rural areas?
There are a lot of people going broke over medical bills right now. There is a lot of work that needs to be done on this. I would say that I would 100% be willing to look at it, and as long as it is done appropriately. My problem with the welfare system is knowing somebody that went on it strictly for the CHIP program, and the state of Pennsylvania decided to throw them every other asset because they were eligible, not because they asked for it, and they actually returned the cards and the money to the state of Pennsylvania because they didn't ask for it. My concern is it's abused, and it would have to be looked at, but I'm 100% for helping. People are losing houses. It's wrong.
Thank you. Fern?
Sorry, she got way off topic there. Do I support wiping out medical debt? Is that what you're asking us?
Yes.
Shapiro's planning to wipe out? Yeah, of course I do. Healthcare should not be an industry. We should not have to profit, or we should not allow people to profit off us being sick. I do agree that our doctors need to be paid, and there needs to be money to keep our hospitals working, the lights need to stay on and so forth, but no one should ever lose everything that they have just because they got sick. It's unfair. It's cruel.
Thank you. I have another question from the audience, and I understand this one. We'll start with you, Fern. Which endorsements are you proud to have earned?
I am proud to have earned the endorsement of Planned Parenthood. I am proud to have earned the endorsement of the the AFL-CIO. I do come from a union family. I live in a union household. The Climate Cabinet, also the PSEA and the AFT. I do support all of our teachers and all of our students. So those are the three areas that I do want to focus on. So those are the endorsements that I am most proud of.
Thank you. Brenda?
Sure. The Troopers Association, the Corrections Association, FOP 36, the Professional Firefighters Association, and the Northeast Building Trades Association. All something that's very passionate to me. And by the way, for the first time in history, the county detectives endorsement, and they endorsed me. I am very proud of the work I have done for law enforcement. I am very proud of the work I have done for our volunteer fire departments. And I am very proud of the trades, as I mentioned before. So they're just a couple of the top ones.
Thank you. I have a two-part question from the audience. So we'll begin with Brenda, with you on this, and then follow-up we'll begin with Fern. So are you satisfied with the current state funding for education? And if so, why?
Fair funding needs to happen across the state, but fair funding needs to be equitable to all schools. The 120th district has 4 school districts in it. Wyoming Valley West fared very well. I was very happy to see the monies that they got. Lake Lehman, on the other hand, received next to nothing. That's not fair. When the monies go out of our district and the monies go down into Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, we need to make sure that the funding is done equitably. We need to make sure that our teachers are taken care of and our students are getting quality educations. So yes, I'm for the fair funding, but it has to be done fairly across all school districts in the district.
Thank you. Fern?
As I stated earlier, I do support full, fair, equitable funding for our schools. I do believe that all Pennsylvania public school students should have a top-notch education so they can start from the same place and have opportunity after high school, that no one should be, I want to say left behind, but that's not true. No one should be allowed to fall through the cracks just because our funding process has been unfair. We do need to fix that.
Okay, thanks. And a follow-up, and we'll start with you. Do you support various programs such as Level Up or Lifeline scholarships for children to go to private schools?
I've already answered that. Those are voucher programs, and no, I do not. Those programs leave a lot of room for exploitation. They take public money and put it in private schools. And although I do understand, like I said, the appeal of the voucher program, and I don't disagree with wanting all of our students to receive a top-notch education, I just don't believe that a program where we rob Peter to pay Paul is the answer.
Thank you. Brenda?
There's a lot of students in our school districts that could not afford to step up to be able to go to a private school or to get a better education. I'm all for it. I don't think it needs to go back and forth constantly throughout the year, but I think every child deserves the right to get a quality education, and that I think the funds should follow the student.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with you on this question from the audience. Trade schools are important and we see more support for them, but Pennsylvania is a right-to-work state now. What is your position on trade unions?
Is that mine first?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
So the trades are extremely important here. They fight for prosperity, they fight for safety, they fight for a living wage, and I support that. I think we need to do more to support it. But there's also a place in this world for businesses that are not under the union branch. And we need to support those small businesses also. My father came up as a union man, my grandfather as a union man, my mother was a nurse retired out of Nesbitt Hospital. I came up in a union family. I'm extremely proud of them and the work they do, and I'm extremely proud of the endorsements that I got and the tradespeople that are out there working to make our lives better every day.
Thank you. Fern?
I do support our union trade programs. They have some of the best apprenticeship programs there are to offer. And when you are in one of those programs, you get to be paid as you learn, and you don't walk away with a massive amount of debt as you would if you went to a college. Sorry. So I do come from a union family as well. I have been endorsed also by many unions, and I live in a union household. We know that unions built the middle class, and we know that when we have unions, it raises all of the wages around us because it allows all of the local businesses to be competitive. So yes, I support them.
Thank you. We'll start with you on this question. The legislature recessed in 2023 before agreeing to revise the state's election code, which has not been updated since 1937. The outdated code does not reflect recent court rulings on voting regulations, especially those relating to voting technology. Moreover, despite the calls from every county election bureau director, the legislature has not addressed their request to allow the counties to engage in pre-canvassing of ballots or to clarify the use of ballot curing. That is, allowing voters to correct a mailed ballot for failure to date and/or sign it. Do you think that Pennsylvania should update its election regulations ahead of the 2024 general election? Why or why not?
I do think that we need to update our regulations, but I don't think that we should be making those changes so close to the next election. I do want to point out that a Commonwealth court recently decided that it was unconstitutional for us to not have the opportunity to cure our ballots should there be a mistake. They're not allowed to throw them out. The voter must be contacted and provided the opportunity to do that. And you did mention pre-canvassing as well. The reason that Pennsylvania results are so delayed is because our election workers cannot open the letters beforehand. There are 2 envelopes. Pre-canvassing is opening that first envelope to be ready to start running the ballots on election day, and they have repeatedly denied that to our election workers, and it's unfair to them. So I support the pre-canvassing.
Thank you. Brenda?
Sure. I think our elections need to have more guidance from the state. There seems to be a lot of confusion from one county to the next on how elections are run. We still have counties that, by the way, get their results out much faster than we do on a paper ballot. I also agree that not opening them prior to should probably be looked at. I think there's work that needs to be done. There's a lot of questions. There's no guidance on the drop box. The drop boxes are a privilege. They are not a requirement in the state of Pennsylvania. We've never taken that up, and I'm sure that's why it's never been brought up, because it's not part of our election laws.
All right, thank you. We'll start with you then, Brenda, with this question. Do you support House Bill 1840 that would ban Pennsylvania municipalities from becoming sanctuary cities for undocumented immigrants? Why or why not?
I would ban it. 100%. The illegal immigration that's taking place right now is horrible. Our law enforcement is taxed. I'm talking to teachers and their spouses going into schools that are scared. They're actually scared for their teacher that's going in because of the stuff that's taking place inside the schools. The fentanyl that's coming across our borders are right here in the 120th district. It's in the marijuana joints, it's in the cocaine, and it's in the heroin that they're using. The state of Pennsylvania should not be paying for the mistakes that the federal government did by opening up that border. I do not support paying illegal immigrants for being here. I do not support housing them. And I do support giving our law enforcement every single tool they need. Drive down the Cross Valley right now where it says Crossway ends, look to the right, you'll see the tents.
Thank you. Fern?
I think one of the biggest problems that we have with immigration is that we don't hold the people hiring them accountable. When we hire undocumented immigrants, we are taking jobs from our local people. They're using their refugee status as incentives, and they are able to remain undocumented because they are paid cash. This allows the employers to evade paying taxes that support our communities, and it's an egregious example of fraud and must be prosecuted. I think that the problem is that we are providing incentive for undocumented immigrants to be here. I have nothing but sympathy for those who are refugees from horrible situations. America is a melting pot, but I do think that we need to be here legally. There is a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and we need to make sure that it's being done the right way.
Thank you. We'll start with you on this question. Gerrymandering, which is the process of drawing electoral districts to advantage one party's candidates over others, contributes to today's hyperpolarization in the legislature. Fair Districts and several other groups have proposed shifting responsibility from the General Assembly and the Legislative Reapportionment Commission to some other body to produce districts that are much more reflective of their community's common interests, as well as being as politically balanced as possible. What are your thoughts on these proposals?
I am absolutely against gerrymandering, and I am for the proposals by Fair Districts PA. I think they have a really good point to make. Politicians should not be picking their voters. It should be the other way around.
Thank you. Brenda?
I'll agree, politicians should not be picking their voters in any way, shape, or form. Congressman Muser, I believe, if I am correct, when they changed his map, he no longer lived in the district that he was elected to serve in his first year in office. How does that happen? Because we decide to pick it up and change it? I believe Representative Karen Bobak's district got moved twice. You're constantly changing the people in the district in which you're representing, so that needs to be seriously looked at.
Thank you. We'll start with you with this question. The U.S. is experiencing a time of hyperpolarization, perhaps the most extreme partisan polarization since the period leading to the Civil War. At the same time, Pennsylvania is the only state in the nation with a divided legislature. That is, the Democrats control the House while the Republicans hold the Senate. What are your thoughts on hyperpartisanship, and do you think that compromise, consensus, and bipartisanship can be achieved in today's General Assembly? Why or why not?
I think it's pretty sad when somebody stands their ground and they're not willing to compromise with the other side. If you are a no-sayer 100% of the time, when you ask for something, guess what the answer is going to be? It's going to be no. I've been dealing with this my entire life, negotiating contracts from across country and dealing with local contracts here. You have to be willing to work with people. You have to be able to explain your side, and you have to be able to compromise. I think that's the problem with what's going on now. And I do want to let everybody in the room know how masterfully Representative Copper was able to do that, to bring all the money back to the district that he has been able to bring back over the past several years. And that's what you need in Harrisburg, somebody willing to work with each other.
Fern?
I'll agree. You definitely need to be able to work with the other side. I know how difficult it can be, and I know how difficult it was in a very hyper-polarized politically situation. The bill that I referred to earlier that we got through Congress, that passed in 2022. I spent 10 years working on it, but I worked with everyone from Katie Porter to Marjorie Taylor Greene to Scott Perry to Dan Crenshaw. We sat down together and we put party aside and worked on the issue and got it done. I have that experience. It's part of what I bring to the table, and it's necessary. You absolutely need that to have a functioning government.
Thank you. Fern, we'll start with you with a question from the audience. Pennsylvania currently does not have a photo ID requirement to vote. Would you support a law requiring a photo ID to vote?
I don't think it's necessary. It's not in our Constitution. It's not in the Pennsylvania Constitution. You have to submit a form of ID the very first time you vote in a new precinct, and they compare your signature every time. I think that our system there is fine.
Okay, Brenda?
I 100% support voter ID, even on a mail-in ballot. I think that's one way to bring integrity back to our elections here in the district. I think that's one way to make people feel more secure about casting their vote and knowing that every vote has been checked. We can't drive a car, we can't fly in a plane. In fact, we all just had to pay for real ID in order to get on a plane by the government. Voter ID and voting is the most important thing we can do as citizens, and we should be showing our ID in order to vote.
Thank you. Please hold your applause. Brenda, we'll start with you. Another question from the audience. Pennsylvania has a lot of old bridges. How can the legislative fund plan to improve and repair aging infrastructure?
By actually getting their budget in order, by actually stop spending frivolously on other things, by stop accepting change orders from contractors who submit a bid to get the low bid and then to turn around and put change order after change order after change order when the low bidder technically wasn't awarded the contract. Let's stop the wasteful spending. Let's get the money into the infrastructure and the bridges that need to be taken care of.
Thank you. Fern?
Yeah, when we appropriate funds to make sure that we're working on our infrastructure, there's still no oversight to make sure that's where the money is going, and I think that's a big part of the problem. We need to know how our taxes are being spent, and if we're going to allocate money to fixing our bridges, then we need to make sure that that's what it's being used for. I happen to live at the top of Harris Hill, and that bridge down at the bottom has been closed for over a year, or nearly a year. They're supposed to work on it by the end of this year, and now they're pushing it back again. It really does hurt us when we do not have access to those. We have to spend an extra 10 minutes just to go around to that insanely long light that we finally got a turn arrow at. We need to make sure the money's going where it's supposed to go. We can't just say, here's money for bridges and use the honor system, because clearly that's not working.
Thank you. Fern, we'll start with you on this one. What role does state government have, if any, in aiding local law enforcement departments in dealing with gang violence, which is on the rise in NEPA?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm not sure I heard it correctly.
What role does state government have, if any, in aiding local law enforcement departments in dealing with gang violence?
Okay, well, I mean, that all goes back down to making sure that they're properly funded and have all of the resources that they need, which I'm all ready for.
Okay, Brenda?
Sure. Law enforcement needs more training. They need more access to more training. It's called mental memory.
It's called resources.
The more access they have to training, the better they're going to do their job. They need tools to get the job done. They are constantly on the ground with their noses on the ground. It's hard to hire law enforcement now. We have departments putting out applications and they may only get one. The atmosphere that was created here for our law enforcement is deterring people from applying. They don't feel wanted, they don't feel needed. They are not the best paid people on the block, yet every day they walk out that door to give up potentially their life for that day. I lived that. I was the wife on the other side. I waited for him to come home and prayed that he came home from that shift on the midnight shift. We need to make sure that law enforcement has the funding to do the training that they need. Right now, once they become an officer, they qualify because they don't have the funds to send everybody through the training.
Thank you, Brenda. We'll start with you on this question. Governor Shapiro has proposed instituting a performance-based funding model for higher education. Criteria on which schools would be graduation and retention rates, as well as the number of graduates who remain in Pennsylvania. What do you think of this proposal?
Performance-based is in how much money the state of Pennsylvania gives to school because of their qualification, because of their success rates?
Yes.
Okay. If you were to use the school choice program and you were to implement it with something like this plan, you're going to see a lot of schools fighting to get the students and fighting for the students to go to that school. You're going to create success all the way around. It happens in multiple other states, just not here in Pennsylvania. We find that Pennsylvania tends to be 10 years behind everybody else. So if you can turn around and you can create an environment where everybody is fighting for that student, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Fern?
Sorry, the question was about higher education, was it not?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the voucher program. Got it. I will be honest and tell you that I am not familiar with this bill, and I don't know if I can support it without having read it first. I do support all of our students. I do support reform in that we need to stop having colleges charge our kids like it's the mafia. People are drowning in debt, and it's because of the high cost of education. So I do know that it is a problem where something needs to be done about it, but I'm not sure of this proposal because I will openly admit that I have not yet read it.
Thank you. Another school question. We'll start with you, Fern. Cyber schools are a major expense for Pennsylvania public school districts. They operate without brick and mortar facilities for students and without the same kind of regulations that traditional schools must follow. Governor Shapiro has proposed standardizing the per-student reimbursement for each charter school student across all school districts at $8,000. He also recommends stronger oversight of cyber schools. What do you think of the governor's proposals?
I like that proposal. As I've mentioned, I do think that we need oversight in how our public schools being funded. And I think it is extremely unfair that each district pays a different amount per student to the same cyber charter school. It should equal the cost of actually educating the student, and they shouldn't be able to make bank on our kids from the school districts that are, for some reason, being paid more. It's a ridiculous thing. It absolutely needs to be reformed.
Thank you. Brenda?
Sure. Cyber schools got to be looked at. They don't have a brick and mortar. They're not paying the insurances. They're not replacing their roofs, and they're not replacing their foundations like our regular school systems are doing it. But right now, because we don't have a choice to send our students elsewhere, because you can't afford it, cyber school is the only option that you can do for somebody who's not getting the education that they need inside of the school, whether it's through bullying or something else that's taking place inside of that school. So it's a need, it's a necessary need, but it is correct. They do not cost what it costs to put somebody in the classroom.
All right, thank you. We'll start with you, Brenda, with this question, and this is my last question. So if any of you have any questions, this is your chance. Last chance to get them to me. With 253 members, 203 in the General Assembly and 50 in the Senate, Pennsylvania has the second largest legislature in the U.S., behind only New Hampshire. There have been proposals to reduce the size of the House to 151 and the Senate to 30 to improve efficiency and reduce costs. What are your thoughts on such proposals?
I'd actually have to do some research on that. I haven't had the opportunity to do that. But I do think we need to start looking at term limits. We need to stop limiting how many years somebody can actually stay into office. I actually think the state representative running every 2 years is ridiculous. You're in office for 1 year, you turn around and you're rerunning again the next year, and you're not doing your job. How do you effectively do your job the second year when you have to run again? So I'm for term limits. That particular subject, I'd have to see more and do more research on that to see how it would qualify out.
Thank you. Fern?
Well, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is very large, and where I stand on the size of our legislature, it really depends on the rules. Right now, any given law sent to committee, and then it could die in committee. The committee chair is the one who decides whether or not you debate the law, whether or not it goes out to the floor, and if it does, if the House Majority Leader doesn't like it, it could die. If the Speaker of the House doesn't like it, the bill could die. And they do the same in the Senate, meaning there are only 6 representatives that matter for each and every bill. And if we're going to continue to operate that way, then we don't need 203 in the House and 50 in the Senate. Why would we have that many when only 6 of them matter? Pennsylvania is a very, very large Commonwealth. We have a lot of people, so of course our legislature is large. But why do we leave it down to only 6 members?
Thank you. We got a question in under the wire. Fern, what's your stance on property tax reform / elimination?
I think if we properly funded our schools, our property taxes would in turn go down. The legislature needs to be doing its job, so it's not pushing the rest of it out on the local municipalities.
Brenda?
This particular one, we need to get back to that budget again. We need to stop the wasteful spending. We need to stop all the excess stuff that's taking place in Harrisburg. We need to take care of our schools locally and make sure that they're funding so school districts. We talked about the fair funding to schools. The schools that did not get the amount of funding from the state of Pennsylvania are the same schools that had to raise their taxes this year to keep their doors open. So that's not fair. There's a multitude of things that have to be looked at in order to do this right. And there's a multitude of things that have to change.
All right, thank you. We'll start with you, Brenda, with this question from the audience. Planned Parenthood in Pennsylvania receives partial funding from state Medicaid money. It provides a wide range of health services to low-income women. What is your position on Pennsylvania Medicaid money going to Planned Parenthood?
As I mentioned before, I do support Pennsylvania's law in place for abortion right now. But I do not support the taxpayer dollar paying for it. We have insurance. We have other ways in order to take care of that. Pennsylvania taxes and the residents' taxes should not be paying for that.
Fern?
Thank you. Yes, the state funding that goes to Planned Parenthood must be allocated to all things that aren't abortion. So I do support that funding because women do need care. Abortion is not the only thing Planned Parenthood offers. We all know that. Why would we not want to support women's health?
All right, thank you. Please hold your applause. Fern, do you support spending caps on elections? For example, how much political action committees or individuals can donate to campaigns?
Yes, that's part of the campaign finance reform that we need. We shouldn't be allowing any kind of entity to buy our politicians, and unfortunately, that's what Citizens Unite has brought us. So, yeah, that's part of campaign finance reform, and I absolutely believe that we need that.
Thanks. Brenda?
I have an idea. Let's cap how much money every politician can make so it can't be unlimited. Let's let people run on their merit, their experience, their personality, and what they've done for their community, as opposed to just being a dollar and cent fight. Again, I'm going to say I'm proud of the grassroots campaign that I've run. I'm proud of the people that have come out and supported me, but I agree, it doesn't need to be unlimited.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. And that concludes the question portion of this. We will now have time for closing statements. Each of you will get 2 minutes, and we will start with you, Brenda.
Sure. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I think this is extremely important. Voting is the most important thing you can do in your life. I also want to thank Representative Hopper, who's sitting in the back of the room. And this orange jacket that I'm wearing tonight is a nod to him. He knows how to reach across the aisle, and he's gotten the job done. He's passed 23 bills while he's been into office. I've talked to other legislators that haven't come anywhere near that. I want to thank him for his confidence, his grit, and his support and endorsement for me throughout this process. I've worked hard. I've cried with the citizens in this district. I've laughed with the citizens in this district. They're hurting, and we need to do something more about it. We have people losing their homes over taxes. I've done everything that I can to get them the resources, not being in office right now, and making phone calls to try to get them help. We certainly, in the state of Pennsylvania, cannot control the inflation, but we can certainly control how much money the state of Pennsylvania takes out of your pockets. I've been fighting for community my entire life. I have sat on boards and fought for children, fought for community service clubs to give back, delivered to the homeless shelters. I've done a lot, and I am looking at this as a much bigger community, and I am ready to fight for it.
Thank you. Fern?
Thank you, and I'd like again to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum this evening, Dr. Little for taking time out of your evening to host it with us, and for everyone for being here again. I'm really glad that everyone came out to learn about my vision for improving the lives of all Pennsylvanians, and I would also like to thank former State Representative Phyllis Mundy, who had a prior obligation, could not be here tonight, for her unwavering support. She, as you know, is a staple of this community that represented us very greatly for 24 years. And when she left politics, she didn't step out until she decided to come out and endorse me, and I can't be more proud of that. As your next state representative, I will work tirelessly to enhance public education, expand job opportunities, increase revenue while lowering taxes, protect our rights and defend our reproductive freedoms, and hold accountable those who would seek to exploit us. There is so much that we can do to strengthen our communities and improve the quality of life for everyone. I am committed to providing real solutions to problems that I have personally experienced. Your concerns are my concerns, and I humbly ask for your vote by November 5th.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Wilkes-Barre area, thank you to our candidates. This forum will be broadcast on Service Electric TV on Channel 9 this Saturday at 8 p.m. A link to that video will also be posted on our League website and the Luzerne County YouTube channel on Sunday the 20th. Remember to vote in the general election on November 5th, whether by mail or in person. And please consider joining the League, a nonpartisan organization. Membership is open across genders as the League works to educate the community about voting rights and the democratic process. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you to our candidates, and have a great evening.